Trauma takes a specific type of treatment. Trauma changes things. It changes the brain. We're not talking about being sad. We're not talking about being frustrated or annoyed or grief from something that's difficult. We're talking about trauma. Whether it meets the diagnostic criteria for PTSD or not is irrelevant when it comes to treatment. You need treatment. You need specific types of treatment. You've heard me say before, trauma changes the brain. It changes the brain. It leaves an imprint on the brain that causes you to filter everything through that. You now filter everything through that trauma and through the difficulty. It changes the limbic system. That fight or flight part of your brain is either now stuck on or is in hyperarousal. It's hypersensitive, hyperaroused, or stuck in the opposition. Why do you think it causes things like your heart racing, your breathing fast, your sweating, your adrenaline, your stomach messed up, your senses honed in? Remember those panic attacks, those anxiety attacks you told me about? What about the anger? What about the overreaction? Doesn't it look similar? If not, maybe it's just sad. Trauma changes things. It takes specific types of treatment. The number one treatment that I have observed in my career for trauma is EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I'm not going to go into the science too much on this video. We'll have to do that later, but I want to tell you what it does. Earlier in my career, I worked with a firefighter who had responded to a very difficult wreck. So difficult that a 5-year-old was laying outside of the vehicle, not breathing, not moving. So he's there trying to get things done. They're doing CPR on a 5-year-old. Now, I don't care how tough you think you are or what you've been through. That's going to be top 10 on anybody's list. That's a difficult thing to deal with. That's hard for anybody. That's traumatizing. Your brain's not supposed to see that, but you can get through it, and people do get through it. What trauma does is completely mess up that system of being able to put it away. It's stuck on that chaos side of your brain. It won't go to that storage side of your brain. It won't get put away. What does getting it put away look like? Did you drive around today thinking about changing your tire if it got flat? No, you didn't. You went to REM sleep that night that you learned that. It moved it from the chaos side to the logic side, and you put it away, and you pull it out of that drawer when you need it. What drawer do you put a 5-year-old that's not breathing in? I would argue there is a drawer for that, but you're going to have to process it differently. You can't just shove it over there. It's like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. So when we talk about this incident with this firefighter, he doesn't see a 5-year-old. He doesn't see just the bad thing. He cannot get over the sensation that it's his 5-year-old. Now, if I lost you there and you think that that's silly, find a different person to talk to about this, because that is exactly what happens in trauma. I know it doesn't make sense. We're not using the make sense part of our brain in trauma. We're not using the prefrontal cortex anymore, the neocortex, the thinking part of the brain. We're now in trauma mode. Your brain is trying to make sense of all this. How in the hell do you make sense of a 5-year-old that's not breathing after a car wreck? You don't. Quit acting tough about it, tough guy. I know, I forget. They signed up for it. Move along. If that's your mentality, move along. Wrong guy to talk to. Listen, it changes your brain. So now he doesn't see a 5-year-old. He sees his 5-year-old. There's an emotional connection now. That's what he thinks he sees. That's what his brain is seeing. His brain is scared to death that 5-year-old could be his 5-year-old. And he knows it doesn't make sense. We know it doesn't make rational sense. We know it doesn't pass the test of, well, but it wasn't your 5-year-old, so get over it. You don't just get over that. The brain is scared. The brain is stuck in fight or flight mode. It will do whatever it takes to try to understand this. And sometimes that process gets stuck. We have a saying, the neurons that fire together, wire together. Your brain is trying to figure out what to do with this horribly tragic thing that you've seen. So it's going to use some other stories. It's going to use some other ideas. It's going to use some other philosophies to try to explain it. You can't explain this. You can't explain a 5-year-old that needs CPR after a car wreck. You can't explain that. That's trauma, folks. Until you see it, you don't see it. Those of you that have seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we use EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's amazing. It's life-changing. It is life-changing. It saved my life. It saved my life after complex trauma. It saved my life after complex PTSD that ruined my career and was ruining my family. It saved my life because I no longer had to see those things. If you're still seeing trauma like it's a slap in the face, that is your limbic system still in overdrive. If you're still seeing trauma like it's a kick in the stomach, we're not talking sad, we're not talking disappointed. It will always be sad and disappointing. Any therapist that tells you otherwise, you should get up and leave their office immediately or hang up the telephone. It will never be good. We're not trying to make it good. We're trying to let the brain make sense of this. We're simulating REM sleep at a different frequency. We're giving you visuals to deal with because you have to deal with this. You can no longer live in trauma. It's not serving you. Less than 30 minutes, that firefighter no longer sees his son. No longer, or after 30 minutes, that officer, that firefighter, he no longer is having trouble. It's still a difficult scene. After 30 minutes of EMDR therapy, it's now just a terrible scene. It's now heartbreaking. It's now sad. It's now difficult to think about and difficult to talk about. But he no longer feels the punch in the gut, and he no longer feels like he needs to curl up on my couch. That's life-changing, folks. It's life-changing. If you don't understand that level of trauma, then you haven't seen it yet. If you think bad things happening is what causes that, if you think nothing's bad enough to cause something like that, cool, go do CPR on a 5-year-old. Tough guy. Nobody signed up for that. Nobody signed up to see the sights that they see. You didn't sign up to see the sights that you saw as a kid. You didn't sign up to deal with the difficult things that your family did, or your spouse did, or your coworker did, or that suspect did. Your brain is stuck. Get it unstuck. We didn't go into the intricacies of the science of EMDR. To be perfectly honest, I don't think everybody needs to know it. There's no secret to it. You can find it all over the internet. You can find it in books. You can find it in training. There's no secret to it. But don't muddy the waters. Just get the help. Just get the help. Save your life. You have to raise that level of vibration. You have to get to the place where your level of vibration in life is higher so that you can deal with the things that are around you. So you can deal with the difficulties that you see. You have to get rid of the filter. If you don't know what this filter looks like, then you're not there. I know a majority of you that listen to this. You got it. You've seen your kid there. You've not been able to get past it. You're still having nightmares and flashbacks about it. It's still become your filter for life. That's why you treat your kids like crap when you overreact. That's why your wife makes you sleep on the couch. That's why you're about to lose your career. You better get some help. The help for trauma is EMDR, folks. Go to my website, theangryvikingtherapist.com. Smash the red button. Get your information in. We've got to start the conversation about what healing looks like. This is healing. This is healing. Get your life back.